Well, hello there. It has been a very long time since I spoke to anybody on here. Just through lack of time, really, unfortunately. I've had a lot of work on, and this kind of thing has just kind of fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. But I thought it was about time I came back and talked about something or other. So this evening, I'm going to be talking about what is a language teacher really for? Why do you pay for language lessons? Now, there are no shortage of people who are happy to spend hundreds or thousands of euros or pounds or whatever their local currency is on attaining a decent level in a foreign language. But at the end of the day, a real mastery of a foreign language can only be attained if you are willing to put in the work by yourself, if you're willing to work hard and to practice at every opportunity. Now, a language teacher is not a magician. They can't make you suddenly bilingual overnight, even though I've mentioned this before. The word bilingual I would never use to describe anyone who's not a native speaker of two languages, but that's another matter. But no teacher is going to make you a fluent speaker of a foreign language just by you paying them for lessons. The thing you have to do is look at the language from your own perspective and find out the best way for you to remember different things. Now, I always give the example of my teacher, who was a guy called Keith Coleman, who was when I was a student down in Portsmouth in the south of the UK. To be honest, we very rarely actually spoke French together. Most of our exchanges were done in English, and I'm sure that some teachers with certain teaching philosophies would say that was a load of rubbish. But what Keith did do was that he instilled in me the basic grammatical constructions that you need to make coherent sentences. So when I was faced with a French person, I was able to construct my sentences in such a way that they would understand what I was saying. So although I may not at that point have been able to come out with a credible native sounding accent, as a lot of people seem to think is very important, what I was able to do was to express myself in a way that was clear. And because I had that backstop of grammatical knowledge, even when I came up against something that I didn't know how to say, I was able to circumnavigate it. I was able to find a way around it and find a way to say it that was coherent to the person that I had in front of me. So despite not having really practiced spoken French with a teacher, I was still able to have a reasonable conversational level in French just because I had spent a lot of time working on grammatical constructions, and I was able to voice my ideas in a way that French people were able to understand. Now, a lot of people put too much emphasis on the fact of having to have a teacher. I mean, a teacher is not there to make you fluent, as I've said. A teacher is there to put in the building blocks of the language, to put them in place, to work in such a way that when you go and spend time in a country where the language being spoken is the language that you've been learning with your teacher, you are at least able to get started. But the way you really learn a language is not just by having those basic blocks in place, but you fill in those blanks with vocabulary that you learn from other people. If you don't have those building blocks in place, if you haven't worked hard on your basic construction of sentences, you're going to have a lot of difficulty trying to move on to anything more complicated. Like anything else, if the foundations are solid and in place, then as soon as you start to learn more complicated input, you are likely to find it easier. So, one thing that I do with my students, and I am not I would not say I'm not a classic teacher because I've done no TEFL qualifications whatsoever. But what I do with my students is I put in place the basic structures that allow them to make coherent sentences, as I was taught when I first started to learn French. Then I encourage them to work by themselves using the internet, using websites such as this one, YouTube, or a large number of other websites, and I show them the right places to find out information for themselves. I point them to events where they can practice speaking their language with native speakers, and I encourage them to, if possible, go and spend some time in an English-speaking country. But one thing I do not do is attempt to be the be-all and end-all in terms of a language learning reference. I will provide my students with enough information so that they can make coherent sentences. I don't talk about grammatical terms, I don't talk about preceding direct objects or the preterite or whatever other sort of poppycock that some people come out with. What I try and do is just let them see that this is how you say this is how you say that, and then we drill it almost military style. How do you say this? How do you say that? And by doing this constantly over a sustained period of time, when it comes into a situation when you have to use the language and you need to know how to say something, even if it's not perfect, you can always come out with something coherent to the speaker of your target language. So the key point here is a language teacher can only do so much. What is a language teacher for? For me, a language teacher is to put in place the basics. The only real teacher that counts is yourself. Thank you very much for listening, and I would be very interested to hear your comments or any kind of input you might like to have on this video. Thanks. Bye.